Now to a new idea being floated to stop the president's health care law in its tracks, and it deals with money. Steve King's an Iowa Republican congressman telling Tea Party activists about his newfound strategy. Listen here.
We must not only shut off all funding to implement or enforce Obamacare for the rest of this fiscal year, but we should follow the model of the funding that shut off, the appropriations bill that shut off the funding in the Vietnam War. It went back to any money that was in the pipeline. That precedent is there.
So, to Steve King, he's here now, congressman out of Iowa. Sir, good morning to you. You also chair the Conservative Opportunity Society. What's the idea behind this?
Well, we've always wanted to repeal Obamacare. We had the vote in H.R. 2 to repeal Obamacare, but the bill itself, and we have to wait for the Senate to act, and of course it's going to be difficult, but the bill itself not only authorizes, but it also appropriates hundreds of billions of dollars into at least 15 categories that kind of spawn new appropriations. And the only way we can get at that is to shut off all funding that might be used to implement or enforce Obamacare. And we have to write in this continuing resolution that comes up next week, language that says notwithstanding any other section of the code, meaning Obamacare itself, will shut off not just the funds going forward, but any funds that have been self-actuated by Obamacare itself.
Okay,
the precedent's there. We can do it.
Okay, so 30 or 40 years ago, it was Democrats who voted on this, right? To cut off the funding for the Vietnam War?
It was. I had gone back about 5 years ago. I went back and I read through the debate and I read through the language in the appropriations bills. There were actually several in 73 and in 74. One was a supplemental appropriations bill. Another was actually a continuing resolution, exactly like we're bringing here next week, that says that notwithstanding any other provisions of any code, no funds can be used to support combat activities in Vietnam or in the adjoining countries. That's been well established. Nancy Pelosi tried 44 times to shut off the funding to the Iraq War in order to shut down the Iraq War. This is a procedure that's been consistently used by the United States Congress.
And I know how upset you were about that move in 2006. What this might ultimately do, however, whether your idea is successful or not, it could lead to a government shutdown.
Well, anything we might do. No, I don't want a government shutdown at all. This is the president's pet project. It's his signature piece of legislation. 2/3 of Americans want it repealed. And so if we are going to always back up and on the threat that the president might shut the government down, he will get exactly what he wants every time he argues about anything. And so we must take a stand. This is the maximum political leverage we're likely to have in this Congress. 87 new freshman Republicans. We've got the momentum. We've got America on our side. And if we allow the funding to go forward to implement Obamacare, hundreds of billions of dollars, this cancer will grow like a tumor within us before we can get it shut off by more conventional means.
Okay, now here's what I'm trying to figure out. We had Doug Holtz-Eakin on last hour. He used to run the Congressional Budget Office. And some of these governors are saying they will not implement health care. They won't even take action on the law. Legally, can they do that?
I don't know the answer to that from a legal perspective. This is fairly new territory to have governors refuse, but they have their own funding that's part of it, so I would presume legally they could.
But even your idea is new territory, too, in many ways.
Well, the precedent exists, as I've said, but the territory, as I said, if my amendment is successful, then it freezes in place any implementation of Obamacare and it stops any spending to carry it out. And I think Congress has a responsibility to do this.
Do you think right now do you have the votes in the House to get it through?
Bill, I'll tell you, I'm behind the curve. I need some more help on this. And I have not been as aggressive as I might have been over the weekend. This just came clear to me this morning on where people stand. So now I'm asking my colleagues to join me. And let's ask that the language be written into the bill, in the appropriations bill. Failing that, we need to go to the Rules Committee and get it exempted from a point of order. But I need my colleagues to step up, and I'm asking them to do that.
All right, Steve King, a Republican out of Iowa. Health care certainly will be on the topic of conversation today at the White House when the House Republican leadership goes there to have lunch with the president. Sir, thank you, Steve King, for your time on the Hill. You got it.